Hello there, this is Sohail Hasni, your host at Energypreneurs. Cheap solar power, batteries, and electric vehicles are changing the transport and energy sector as we know. I bring in guests to this podcast who will help you with their ideas to navigate this energy transition. Thank you for joining. Carlos Santamaria is one of my inspiration to do this podcast. And today, I'm bringing you to the discussion with Carlos about electric vehicle. What are the real challenges in implementing those electric vehicles? How do we bring communities into the picture? How we streamline those policies so that electric vehicle can be scaled up? We talk about his individual situation as well. As a New Yorker, why would he buy electric vehicle or why not? What are the range anxieties he has? Where will he charge? So these are all very interesting topics that we delve ourselves into. So please come and join in, explore more, and share your ideas. Hi, Carlos. Finally, it's great to have you on this platform. You are one of the people who encouraged me to do this. So I'm very excited to have you here. Maybe you can start introducing yourself first and see how we go.
Hi, Sohail. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Saw the potential for you to do something like this, and I'm really glad to see how you've succeeded. You're as prolific, or even more than we expected. I'm currently a senior editor at Horizon Gate, it's a geopolitical risk consultancy, mainly working with oil and gas clients in the energy sector. And I used to be an editor at the Asian Development Bank, and we did a lot of work with you back in the day on blogs, and especially video blogs, which you were the pioneer of, and ended up doing some absolutely amazing things. I will never forget. Was it Kyrgyz Republic when you did the thing with the water with the spray?
Yes.
That was amazing. If any of your listeners or viewers are interested in that, you should share that one because it's really
$1 million worth of water was spilling down the literally drain when the neighboring countries, Afghanistan, had no electricity just not far away. So the value of regional cooperation.
Yeah, I do not work in the cleanest industry per se, but one of the things that we've been covering a lot lately is decarbonization in the Asia Pacific regions. Our clients are super interested in the opportunities for TSS and hydrogen. And in CSS in particular, there's a bit of a debate going around about the wisdom of capturing carbon in high emission countries like South Korea and Japan and storing it in others with not low emissions, but much lower, such as Malaysia and Indonesia. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
I visited a couple of carbon capture places in South Korea, and I saw a storage place in Melbourne next to the Ocean Road. I stood on that ground for a while, and then I was saying, okay, people are doing all the emissions around the world, and they're going to bring it here, truckload, and pump it underground. Nah, it doesn't make sense. So, of course, economics does not make sense. And I think developing a rubbish dumping technology is not going to help. We have to stop rubbish. That's the carbon. And then exporting rubbish to another country, oh, that's even worse because you will add cost, the fuel, because carbon capture is very expensive. And then you are adding another component, which is transport. And then storing has many risks. I'm not expert of that, but carbon dioxide is heavier than air. And if it's a valley, if it leaks and others, and you will not know, carbon dioxide has no smell. So you might be just up to here on carbon dioxide without knowing, because any other gas will smell or there is a gas leak. Anyway, I don't want to get there, but I personally think it's really not even the best bad idea we got. We have better bad ideas. Remember the movie Argo?
Yeah, Argo is, of course, one of my colleagues' favorite films. It's like her favorite film of all time, and she watches it like 20 times a year. So I'm going to mention to her that you brought it up.
And there was one dialogue saying, is it a good idea? I said, no, this is the best bad idea we got. What I'm saying, CCS is not the best bad idea we got. Maybe we have better bad ideas.
That's what I was asking you. What would be a better bad idea?
I think in terms of carbon capturing, trees are naturally carbon capturing. I read somewhere that someone had an idea, and there was a reference to Bill Gates as well. Again, I haven't had the time, but the three sentence that I wrote was basically you grow tall trees, they capture carbon, you dig out the soil, bury them, grow again on top. It's basically doing the same process the way the coal were generated. Because if you burn that, it releases, but if you bury the tree under the soil, that's captured, you grow again. So you create a layer. I thought that's a very good, bad idea. I don't know the numbers, but sounds very
Yeah, perhaps that could be a way. The countries that are already like actually benefiting economically from the forest. Like, the ones I can think off the top of my head, correct me if I'm wrong, are Gabon and Guyana. Perhaps legislated that part of the revenues that go directly to the government from these carbon credits of keeping their forests and growing them could go toward basically replanting these trees every few years so they continue to suck up more carbon. My only question is what happens when the emissions are so far away?
I don't know. If you look at the emission side of it, again, I'm very optimistic on this side. Coal generation globally has going down quite fast. Of course, it's still a lot to do, and it will keep going down. So emission from power generation will be less and less because hardly anybody use diesel to generate, maybe a few countries in the world, few developing countries where sort of oil gets used. So slowly those things will go as solar and battery combination. The killer application is becoming cheaper. Battery right now, I was talking to someone day before yesterday that cell level $50 a kilowatt hour. This is the magic number that I've been waiting for almost 10 years or even more. So if those happens, I think slowly the supply side of the coal will slowly go. And then the cars, as people figure out the electric car, all cars will become electric because there's no point to have diesel cars.
Cars will become electric because they are affordable and there are enough charging stations for everyone, or will it be as a result of whatever you call it? Because those here in the United States, they haven't worked.
No, because what happens, a Nissan Leaf had a 40 kilowatt hour battery or something when it first came out. The battery was $1,000. So just imagine the battery of a car which was $40,000 is a nightmare. And right now people are saying it's a $50 a kilowatt hour. So it comes from $40,000 to suddenly $3,000. It's a game changer. It will take a while, wholesale price to trickle through to individuals. And then it's very well established electric cars are cheaper to run.
I'm not entirely sure this is true, but in terms of the longevity of the battery, the ones being made right now, the batteries are going to outlast the rest of the vehicle.
Absolutely.
That's a very encouraging development. What I wonder is if all of the money, or at least a significant chunk of the money directed toward these programs, mostly in developed countries, would not be better spent precisely on R&D for all of these technologies that have really advanced in recent years. And if they continue to advance in the same direction, really have the potential to be not just one game changer, but several, that really shows producers, this is coming. You should be thinking about retrofitting all of your gas stations to have chargers, not just have a couple, but to really start phasing them out. So basically, we don't set up new networks, but rather use the existing ones, because otherwise they will become stranded assets. Right?
Yeah, I think the problem is the people who invested in those assets, those companies, they will like to delay everything, right? These are the people who created the term range anxiety, right? I have an electric car. Everyday use. My wife charges it once a week, once in 10 days. I talked to someone in the Philippines. He said, I charge my car every 6 weeks because I do bugger all kilometer, 5-6 kilometer a day. So I think this range anxiety is an anxiety like if the sun vanishes one day, what will happen to my solar power? If sun vanishes, I think we are all dead. So it is unfounded. It's a propaganda.
Range anxiety is almost entirely all this country just because it's so damn big and so much sprawl. I don't know about Australia, but I presume in parts of Australia it's an issue as well. But I can definitely tell you that most of Japan, this is not an issue. Most of China, this is not an issue. Definitely most of Europe, it's not an issue. But the question for me is whether the subsidies should be directed to producers for political purposes or to consumers or to the owners of gas stations. I'm sure if you give them some sort of tax rates, they will gradually be willing to do these things. You can say that they're delaying all this action because of this rage anxiety, because they just want to continue the life of what they currently invested in with investing more. But if they are encouraged so that new investment is lower, maybe that's the way to go. And maybe they're going to have to get used to a system where there are less people using their services. And, they can probably get to a point that they only need one person operating the gas station. And it's not really a gas station anymore. Or maybe the gas station turns into a grocery store, which could solve a host of other problems in this country. And one of those, that a lot of rural areas don't have fresh produce. So they live very unhealthy lives. But as you see, it's so easy to pivot from one topic to another because all of these things are related. So sometimes climate policies can produce positive health outcomes. I sound like I'm still with ADB.
You're in New York. If you were driving, how many times in a year you will do 100 kilometers in a single day?
100 kilometers in the city, I need to leave the city and come back.
And how many times in a year your car will do 100 kilometers in a day?
If I used my car to commute to work, which would be insane because it would take me about an hour and a half, I'd probably need to charge my car maybe every 10 days, every 2 weeks. If I used it every day to go to work, which I don't, and most people in the city don't.
Because I did from Sydney to Sunshine Coast about 1,200 or 1,400 kilometers, I think 1,400 in a day. So I was crazy, bought a new car, got excited without actually thinking through where we'll charge. But the app helped. Okay, there's a fast charger and we managed. But again, since then I have done 3 sort of those trips where we did in a single day 600, 700 or 1,000 kilometers. But that's not long. Every day, globally, I think Australian average is about 32 kilometers a day. I think last time I checked. Yeah. So everybody will be eventually charging at home, like the way we charge our phone.
The range anxiety of not being able to find the charger is the range anxiety of being somewhere in middle America and you haven't seen a gas station. And this has happened to me. Like you have not seen a gas station for almost an hour. The same way you see how much gas you have left in the tank, and you probably have a range of kilometers and just don't wait until your last 50 kilometers to charge. It's pretty simple. Question is, you wouldn't do it with gasoline. Why do you do it with electricity?
It's even better. We were driving in northern Australia from Darwin to all the way up to Kakadu National Park. And there's no gasoline station for about 100 plus kilometers, right? Yeah. The road signs are that if you're stuck, stay in your car until someone else passes. Don't get out. Now, I was thinking to operate a gasoline station is very expensive. Someone has to bring in and fill it up. But just imagine how simple is it to put a solar charger there. Sorry, EV charger. You have the sun, topping it up and discharging. And maybe once in a month, once in 3 months, someone need to go and make sure if something goes wrong. So I think it would be very easy to put solar charger once it becomes popular because you don't have to refill. Now, when you're putting a gasoline station, you have to think all the logistics of coming, fueling, danger, fire. If it's solar, battery, I don't think it will be that complicated.
Yeah. And for urban users, there's a lot of cheap arid land surrounding cities, and all of this could be dedicated to this. I'm thinking of my country. Spain is essentially cities, and in between them, there's absolutely nothing. They're like tiny towns that are virtually empty, a whole lot of road, and a whole lot of sunshine. And this is only going to get worse in terms of the heat. You move all these stations outside of the cities for the few insane individuals who live in them and insist on driving, because unlike in most American cities, they do have public transport options. Like I have members of my family who drive to work in my hometown despite having public transport. I really do not understand this. A, you can walk because it's right there. And B, if you're that lazy, there's a bus in front of you. But if you insist on driving, we have one of the highest rates of days of completely full sunshine per year of the entire European Union, it's an absolute no-brainer. Just make use of that.
So coming back to that charging issue, there will be other option as well, because two options that I can think of is becoming popular. You can, of course, put one of those sticky solar panel on your car, which will not give you a lot, but you're stuck, put the car 2 hours, that will give you 20 kilometers to drive somewhere. And the second, I think some of the cars I saw that have V2L very high, so you can charge one car from the other cars.
This is a likely stupid question from a non-scientist, but why don't all EVs come with the dedicated route as a solar charger? All of them. What you mentioned, because it wouldn't charge enough?
Yes, of course. We'll do maybe 5%, maybe even less, depending on what's the surface area. But if your car is parked sitting there in a car park whole day, every day, and you do only 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers a day, that's more than enough.
But if you're driving around all day and you have a solar panel on the roof of your EV, that will empower you for the whole day, but it should get you through most of it, right? Even if you start on almost empty charge. So that seems like a pretty straightforward and simple tech solution to just incorporate. And depending on complaints, like, you guys want sunroof. No one sees what's on the top except very tall people. That's a no-brainer. The only thing, I've never actually driven an EV. The only issue that as a potential future user comes to mind is the speed of the charge. How many years do you think it'll take, if it can ever get to the same level, that it will take about 3 minutes to fully charge a car? Do you think we're close to that moment? Do you think we will ever get there? I'm directing it to what you're good at.
You just give me an idea. Why can't people have two sets of batteries separated so you can put two chargers and fill it up?
Yeah, it's like Rhea carrying a power bank for her phone.
When you're filling up your tank, rather than having one big tank, or even if the one big tank technically could be connected with two chargers, so that should theoretically cut down half the time. You can separate the battery. I don't know the technology side of it, how the circuitry it will impact. But yeah, if you put two charger on and the battery, the 60 kilowatt hours, two component, okay, I'll get a battery expert to comment on that. I'm sure someone will listen.
Yeah, I think the world is on the right path in that sense. The adoption is not going to be as fast as we expected, and definitely not as fast as we would like. And it's going to be uneven, and there are going to be missteps. But if you'd asked me around the time that we met, if I thought so many people around the world would be using EVs now, you were adamant. And I was reading just whatever you want. And a lot of it has happened. The models look amazing. There are things that I'm not so sure we should be moving toward to adapt to consumer taste. I don't see the point in a Hummer EV, because the whole point of this thing is for them to be small and nimble.
Why?
The electricity is free, but not the components that you use to make the batteries.
If somebody wants a Hummer, if they can run with electricity. But coming back, what you just...
It's the components to build up the battery, considering where they come from, the primary components, the secondary components, and the politics of all of that, which is already very contentious, and it's going to get worse, especially in this country and the relationship with China. Maybe the future is in seeking alternatives, if at all possible, to a lot of these critical minerals.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia has a huge project, 65 billion, if not mistaken, to invest into EVs. Australia has huge number. Of course, the US had. Canada just announced. Korea announced. Everybody now is focusing, how can we build up our domestic solar and battery production, because it's going to be a huge demand. And that's why you see the attitudes have changed. I remember you telling me that ADB's e-trike project, which I was project officer, that no, we cannot tell anybody because certain management team is saying, no, not your call. What I'm saying, that was the attitude. I have been told many times. But the same ADB last week at the Asia Clean Energy Forum, at the opening, e-trike was featured as ADB's innovation. This is how the world has changed. So somebody actually texted me, have you seen the thing? I said, I'm not attending. I'll check later, and said, okay, the world has changed.
The politics of what happened is, I remember years before meeting you, I covered, when I was a journalist working for the Spanish news agency, I went on a demo of the e-jeepneys in Makati, which were quite bigger. And that was fine. But then a few years later, the e-trikes were not. That was really weird because they're small.
Makati jeepneys were lead acid e-trike was lithium-ion battery, and that was challenging Motolite, who had 90% of the market, still has.
Yeah.
So it was going against the incumbent. That was the problem.
Yeah, but you're always going to run into some powerful element of the supply chain. And when that dominance is challenged, and for all you know, you'll end up running into the lobby that gives them the highly pollutant fuel they run on. You replicate this across any industry, and there are always going to be several groups that are going to oppose this. The same way you'll eventually run into the opposition of unions when the gas stations of the future need a third of the staff, if they need staff at all, which is hence my suggestion to turn them into something else that would serve the needs of the communities where they are. Because if you silo this, oh, this is just a climate problem, this is a climate energy thing, and you don't consider all the implications, then you're setting yourself up to fail. If you're going to let all these people go, they're not going to leave and go somewhere else, offer them a possibility to have decent employment where they already are. Because people like change, but most people don't. I embrace change. I embrace moving countries, sending out to different places, trying new things. Most people don't. They want to do whatever they've done, so you have to make it as easy as possible for them.
This change is stressful.
So what else are you up to these days?
No, we're trying to do, through the consulting company, quite a number of electrical related projects. I'm quite excited. So what we are doing, preparing the projects, almost like an ADB board document equivalent, and then we see who might be able to invest in those projects and then build it up from there. I thought that's interesting because a lot of time when you talk to people about an idea, when I was an ADB staff, it was easy to say this, I'll bring a team of people and make it happen if you agree, Mr. Government. But now we are saying on a more subtle that we have actually prepared the project. It's a mill. The details, if you have it, we can help you implement, and then we will recover our cost as a success fee of some kind, which we have not there yet, but we are working on a lot of fun and exciting things.
That's classic. What are the biggest challenges? I presume you're working a lot more with the private sector than you used to. So what are the main challenges that you're experiencing in this new period? Doing something similar in a different way, definitely in a more efficient way.
Yeah, I think the speed is an issue because people want to move too fast without thinking through. I feel like I'm stuck in the middle. During my 22 years of ADP days, I wanted to move fast. Everybody says slow. Now I'm seeing private sector, some people don't even want to think through. I said,
You're getting a taste of your own medicine.
yes. Now, but issue here is a lot of people don't know the details. So I think those fear of slow you down come from not knowing details. Some are happy to jump without knowing the details, whereas some of the large corporate people wanted to slow down, that let's take time to know the details. So they were general risk averse people, but the people I'm seeing is too much risk takers. They even don't know that they don't know. So it's interesting. I'm stuck in the middle. So it's fun.
What would you say the people that you're working with, the one that is most commonly missed or ignored, like one glaring thing? Is there anything that you keep seeing from time to time, one detail that everyone keeps glossing over that is actually very important in getting these projects not only off the ground for them to really be successful?
I think one thing that I'm seeing is people really do not know or have access to the knowledge that there are many public resources, climate resources available that might actually help their project. One, they don't know, and they know, those who know things, it's too cumbersome, forget them, let me do it anyway, because if it makes commercial sense. That's one. And the second I found working through a large corporate, I mean, their systems and others. So we have a sort of in our head, if you talk about a project, I know the checklist that I have to go through what is missing. So what I found in a lot of people saying, maybe 20 items that you must look, they have seen the 3 and then happy to move on. I said, no, hang on, there are other things that you must, because otherwise you will get stuck. So I think that part I'm finding very interesting.
The first thing you mentioned is actually fascinating. So there are all these public resources, which I presume a lot of them are subsidies, loans, financial resources available to them. But basically they're like, if I tap into this, there's likely going to be so much red tape that it's going to slow me down. So I'd rather find the money some other way and take on more risk just to avoid the bureaucracy. Is it a question of the public agencies who are offering these resources not properly communicating how easy, at least in your mind, it is to access these resources? Could they do a better job of communicating?
Absolutely. I think communication is always an issue. But I think also there is an issue of trust, because even if you come and say, you know what, I've got a new pair of shoes, I'm going to run fast, and say, my last experience, it took me X, or I heard it takes Y. So it's very difficult to get out. So I think public institutions, the climate institutions, they have to go and market saying, you know what, this is what we have done. It took only that much. Have to show some numbers, because people don't want to touch, because saying, if I ask you, you will give me a list of 200 things that I have to submit. I'll rather pay more, move fast.
Yeah, I fear that these agencies tend to communicate very well with people who agree with them, who support their goals. They don't do such a good job at trying to convince people to give them a second look. Say, I really want to help. I don't want to force you to do things a certain way. I am here to help. They don't come across that way, which is essentially what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's like essentially one other way. I'm just thinking loud here. If it's a highly organized house where everything has a home, the pen, the pencil, highly organized, and get displaced, someone get upset. Sorry, this is the pen stand, where is the pen? And then an average person walking in has to start processing that logic. So all these large banks, including the one that my former employer and all the governments, they have a way of shelving things, which sometimes defies the sort of norm, because people have moved on, people look at convenience. So it's very difficult to find information. If you look through any of the publication, I read through one World Bank paper somebody sent me, I could not find what the project is about. Unless you know where to look, it's very hard to say, what is this $100 million going to do? You need to know.
Yeah, I was the one supposed to be creating news releases from these things. Quite a few times it entailed not one, not two, but several phone calls to multiple people on the team. So yeah, what do you want to do?
Yeah. So you need to know that plates are shelved on the third row of the left-hand side of a kitchen cabinet. Unless you know that, you'll be looking everywhere, right? The guy who knows, there is your plate. So the rule-based and structure, so that the everyday readers can find them easily, means 90% of the non-everyday readers can never find anything.
Yeah, that's why they need a connection to the real world that just makes the very good work that they do user-friendly and accessible. And I think this approach works well when you're working with other government, well, who have the same convoluted way of structuring everything, but it does not work with the general public at all, unfortunately. And it's not just the banks, it's most public agencies in general. I'd argue that maybe, in my experience, a country that does it relatively well is Singapore. That at least makes an effort to make all of the resources that the government offers to the private sector, the energy companies, very accessible and easy to apply for. And this is by government standards. There are a few examples in Europe. Estonia comes to mind that they just make things easy, but it's going to take a very long time for bureaucracies in other countries to abandon this sense of, if we make things easy, we'll be out of a job. That's the mentality in Spain, where the public sector keeps growing and growing. I've been away for 20 years, and every time I go, it's a little bit less user-friendly, which is extremely frustrating.
Australia did this streamlining law. If you look any website, it makes sense generally. There's not much unnecessary technical mumbo, but I'm very hopeful that because of the AI and everybody using ChatGPT or this and that, people will no longer go to the website, ask the AI, say, find it. So that might change.
It would be fantastic if an AI app that is like a Duolingo for red tape, like government bureaucracy country X to English. Right. What does this actually mean? This is potentially like multi-billion-dollar business. Try to navigate like U.S. government procurement, state, local, etc. It would drive you absolutely insane. Right. Maybe this is one way to go.
We also have to think differently, though. I used it as an example. I don't know whether it makes sense or not.
It's a
I
good
was
one.
sitting down with ChatGPT and I spent 3 hours saying, okay, I want to do an electric taxi project in the Philippines, replacing 50 taxis with this is the taxi model, this is the kilowatt hour. I'll replace the equivalent, this model of a car. That's the specification. So I had a long conversation. So technical is done. Now, charging. How many chargers? We agreed something. No resettlement, social, environmental, climate impact. How much? So we did all those. Okay, let's look at the financial. This is the cost. Let's do continue as I would do with the financial analyst in an ADB project team. So once it was all done, I said, okay, let's summarize all the economic issues. Yeah. After 3 hours, I got a document out that almost like an ADB RRP report and recommendation to the president, but it had a lot of elements. And then I thought, why do you need to write the document in the first place? Anybody can come query this knowledge base saying, tell me how many people. You don't have to write anything. Why do you have to write? Because that could be one way that you have trained an AI about all the data, the knowledge of a particular project that anybody can come in and query. So why you have to write? Why you have to waste time? I thought you can go to the ChatGPT session I had. You can go and ask anything. Hey, if I double the project size, how does the project cost compare? Or if I delay operation this and that, what's the risk? Because everything is fed into that.
Yeah, these are more advanced frequently asked questions, just more than you would typically get on a website. And yeah, this is a potentially great application to go from the basics to the specifics, to trawl through the data that's available, especially an investor or a technical person. You can go from the general to the specific. That's great.
And you can put a sort of confidentiality as well, that based on the person doing it, ID check what sort of access of information you will have.
Yes, or depending on the type of question you ask, you'd be required to sign a virtual NDA before viewing it. Great. We just came up with basically $2 billion business ideas. Unfortunately, I don't have an entrepreneurial mind. Too bad.
I was quite amazed because I said, hey, now it is ready. So anybody wants anything, okay, can I get a 2-page summary on what's going on? Done, because it has the whole thinking. I spent 3 or 4, maybe 5 hours with it. So it's almost equivalent of any project developer, the talking to the technical guy, the lawyers, the economists, the financial analyst, the social guy, all individual thing. And the good thing is if I change one cost, I don't have to say, oh, by the way, economist team, can you update the financial? That's what we do, right? As a mission leader, an ADB team leader, here the same brain you're talking about, or brain or whatever it is, right?
You are going to destroy so many.
I produced something in 3 days that would have taken in my former position 6 months and $500,000.
Yeah, there's a whole industry designed to support that.
What happened now, Carlos, you see, the financial model that I got, of course, I come from a financial background, but if I send it to a financial analyst now saying, please go through. Technical, if I send you a technical guy proper, get certified. So even if you pay each of them $10,000 each, still you have finished the project in $60,000, not $500,000. And within presumably 2 weeks as opposed to 6 months.
Do they talk to each other?
In a project team, no, normally they won't. It will be coming to me, then going back. And sometimes they do.
Is it better this way, or would it be beneficial for them?
What I'm saying, the equivalent of a computer is it all stays in the same. A lot of interfaces can be developed. It would be fun.
It sounds fun.
We had a lot of fun.
Yeah. It'd be great.
But again, these technologies are at a very early stage, right?
Yes, but this is when you got to get in. You got to know you're going to have a huge advantage in understanding it by the time that everyone else gets in on the game.
Yeah. I'm a fast mover on these things. I like fun, so why not?
You don't say you're a fast mover. You're the leapfrogger of leapfrogger.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm an early adopter of a lot of tech.
A lot of things that I first heard from you, a few of them I've never heard again, but definitely a lot of things. You have to go back into earlier work, look at the calls. That'd be perhaps an interesting exercise for you, like sort of a conclusion. Not like a look back, but a look back would look forward. This is what I said and you already do a little bit of this, but look at the concrete examples. This is what I predicted would happen 6 or 7 years ago. Did it actually happen? And it could then say, yeah, I was smart, but this is why. And it didn't also say, this is why. And this is what would need to happen right now for this to happen in the future. That would be super interesting.
Okay, I'll think about that because a lot of things, even I went through the RRP part of it, of the e-trike project, and said, this was so obvious. Why people challenge? And
Yeah.
then people say, yeah, it is obvious now. All the people are driving electric cars, but at the time, they didn't know. Is there anything else you want to say?
This was fun. Like, conversation was anything but structured. But then again, whenever have we had a structured conversation? So it was great to see. I think I was relatively coherent.
Thank you so much.
Always happy to help.
Thank you. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Energypreneurs. To continue listening to this conversation, please visit us at Energypreneurs. Thank you. See you next time.